Imagine holding your breath in a freezing air vent, terrified not of getting caught, but of failing the one person who matters. Cleo isn't a master criminal. She is a desperate granddaughter with a lucky screwdriver and an eviction notice in her pocket. She came to this penthouse for a diamond to save her grandmother's nursing home. Instead, she found him, Ignis Thorne, a billionaire who radiates heat like a furnace in a room cold enough to freeze your breath. She touched his treasure, a glowing, pulsing dragon pearl. Now the heist has gone wrong. The dragon is awake, and Cleo has to make a choice that will change her biology forever. Before we find out if she survives the heat, hit like, subscribe to at Linas Romantasy Collection, and let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from today? Now, let's see what happens when you steal from a dragon. Chapter 1. The first rule of stealing from the richest man in the city? Don't sneeze in the air vent. I held my breath, my nose pressed against the cold aluminum of the ventilation shaft, praying the dust bunny tickling my left nostril wouldn't be the death of me. Below me lay the penthouse living room of Ignis Thorne, CEO of Thorne Holdings and the city's most reclusive billionaire. Rumor had it the man was a vampire, or maybe a cyborg. Honestly, I didn't care if he was 3 raccoons in a trench coat, as long as he had the Firestar diamond in his safe. "Come on, Cleo," I whispered to myself, checking my watch. Grandma's nursing home bill isn't going to pay itself. I unscrewed the vent cover with my lucky screwdriver, named Philip, and dropped soundlessly onto the plush white carpet. The room was weird. I expected high-tech gadgets and modern art. Instead, the place looked like a museum for a warlord. Ancient shields hung on the walls, massive broadswords were mounted over the fireplace, and the air was freezing, like walk-in freezer cold. "Note to self," I muttered, shivering in my black catsuit. "Buy the billionaire a thermostat for Christmas." I crept toward the massive mahogany desk in the center of the room. There was no safe. There was, however, a velvet pillow sitting on a pedestal, and on that pillow wasn't a diamond. It was a pearl. A massive, glowing, reddish-orange pearl the size of a golf ball. It pulsed with a faint inner light, warm and inviting. "Okay, not a diamond," I murmured, leaning closer. "But definitely shiny. Shiny pays the bills." I reached for it. Grrr. The sound was low, like a subwoofer vibrating in the floorboards. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head. Sitting on a leather armchair was a dog? No. A cat? Definitely not. It was about the size of a bulldog, hairless, with leathery gray skin and bat-like ears. It stared at me with unblinking yellow eyes. "Hey there, buddy," I cooned, reaching for a dog biscuit I kept in my utility belt. Rule number 2, always bring snacks for the guard dogs. "You are spectacularly ugly, aren't you?" "What are you, a hairless pug with a skin condition?" The creature didn't bark. It opened its mouth, revealing 2 rows of serrated, needle-like teeth that definitely didn't belong on a canine. "Okay, aggressive pug. Got it." I tossed the biscuit. The creature snapped the treat out of the air, crunch, and swallowed it whole. It didn't look happy. It looked hungry. I turned back to the pedestal. I needed to grab the pearl and run before Cujo's ugly cousin decided I was the main course. My fingers closed around the warm, smooth surface of the pearl. "Touch that," A voice boomed from the shadows, deep enough to rattle my ribcage. And you lose the hand. I yelped, bobbling the pearl. I caught it, barely, and spun around. Emerging from the hallway was a man who took up way too much space. Ignis Thorne. He was massive, at least 6'5", wearing a charcoal 3-piece suit that fit his broad shoulders like a second skin. But it wasn't his height that stopped my heart. It was his eyes. They were amber, burning electric amber. And for a split second, I swear the pupils were vertical slits, like a reptile's. Colored contacts, my brain reasoned immediately. Rich people are so weird. "Hi," I squeaked. Then I cleared my throat, channeling my inner cool girl. "I'm with the cleaning crew. We do the night shift. Very exclusive." Ignis didn't blink. He walked toward me, his movements fluid and predatory. He didn't walk like a CEO. He walked like an apex predator stalking a gazelle. "The cleaning crew," he repeated. His voice was dry, devoid of humor. Dressed in tactical stealth gear, breaking into my private sanctuary. He took another step. The air in the room seemed to get hotter. I could feel heat radiating off him in waves, which was impossible because the room was freezing 5 seconds ago. "I take my job very seriously," I lied, backing up until my hip bumped the desk. "Look, Mr. Thorne, I'll just leave this paperweight and show myself out." "Put it down," he commanded. His eyes flared. I saw it again. A flicker of gold light under his skin, like lava moving beneath rock. Okay, seriously? What kind of skincare routine is that? I looked at the window. It was too far. I looked at the ugly dog thing. It was blocking the door. I looked at the pearl in my hand. If I put it down, I went to jail. If I kept it, I had evidence. Panic, my old friend, took the wheel. "You want it?" I challenged, holding the pearl up. Ignis lunged. He moved faster than any human should be able to move, a blur of shadow and heat. Instinct took over. I couldn't pocket it in time. I couldn't throw it, so I did the only thing a panicked, hungry thief could do. I popped the pearl into my mouth. Ignis froze, his hand inches from my face. His eyes went wide. Genuine, terrified shock replaced the anger. "Spit it out!" he roared, the sound vibrating the glass windows. "Do not swallow that!" I shook my head, cheeks puffed out like a chipmunk. "I'm just hiding it," I told myself. "I'll spit it out when I get to the Vespa." Ignis grabbed my jaw with one hand. His skin was scorching hot, like he had a fever of 105. "Spit it out, you foolish human!" The shock of his burning touch made me gasp. Gulp. Silence. The pearl slid down my throat. It was warm, heavy, and tasted vaguely like cinnamon and ozone? I stood there, blinking. Ignis stood there, looking like I had just pulled the pin on a grenade and swallowed it. "Oops," I wheezed. Ignis stared at my stomach, then back at my face. The vertical slits in his eyes were definitely there now. No contacts could do that. "You," he whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and horror. "You just ate the heart of the sun." "It tasted like cinnamon," I offered helpfully. Then I burped. A tiny puff of actual, literal gray smoke came out of my mouth. I stared at the smoke. Ignis stared at the smoke. The ugly dog thing let out a whine and covered its eyes with its paws. "Okay," I said, my voice high and tight. I think I need a doctor. Or a breath mint. Ignis didn't call the police. He didn't call security. He walked over to the door, locked it with a heavy thud, and turned back to me with a look that promised murder. "You aren't going anywhere," he growled. "You are now property of the Hoard." "Property of the Hoard?" I repeated, my voice cracking slightly. "Look, buddy, I don't know what kind of kink this is, but I'm not into the whole master and commander vibe. I have a cat at home. I know how this works." I didn't actually have a cat. I was allergic. But Ignis Thorne didn't need to know that. Ignis didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. He marched toward me, the air around him shimmering like pavement on a hot summer day. The closer he got, the more I started to sweat. It wasn't just nerves. The man was a walking radiator. "You have consumed a relic of the First Age," he growled, cornering me against the mahogany desk. "It is not food." "It looks like a gobstopper," I defended, holding my hands up. "And for the record, it tastes like spicy cinnamon and bad decisions. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I need some Tums." I tried to sidestep him. Ignis slammed a hand onto the desk, blocking my path. The wood actually hissed under his palm. When he pulled his hand away, a perfect, charred handprint remained on the expensive mahogany. I stared at the handprint. I stared at him. "Okay," I whispered. "So you have really hot hands. That's a medical condition. You should see a dermatologist." Ignis ignored my diagnosis. He grabbed my chin, tilting my head back. His touch was scorching, but not quite enough to burn, just enough to make every nerve in my body stand at attention. He peered into my eyes, his own amber irises contracting into those terrifying vertical slits again. "It is fusing," he murmured, horror lacing his deep voice. "The pearl. It has already begun to bind with your meridian system." "My meridian what now?" I swatted his hand away. "Personal space, hot stuff. And what do you mean, fusing? Is that doctor speak for you're going to poop it out in 24 hours? Ignis looked at me like I was a cockroach that had just learned to speak French. "If we cut you open now," he said, his tone terrifyingly casual, "the pearl would shatter. Its energy is volatile. It would level this entire city block." My stomach gave a violent lurch. "Cut me open? Who said anything about cutting? I definitely veto that option." "Silence," he commanded. He began pacing the room, his long strides eating up the carpet. He looked like a caged tiger, if the tiger was wearing a $5,000 Italian suit. "I cannot extract it. If the vessel breaks, the Hoard is damaged. The pearl is possessive." "I am not a vessel," I snapped, crossing my arms. "I am Cleo Vance, and I have rights. I'm going to leave now, and in 2 days, I will mail you back your sparkly jawbreaker. Cleaned, sanitized. Promise." I turned toward the door. Bam! A heavy bronze shield flew off the wall and embedded itself in the doorframe, inches from my nose. I shrieked and jumped back, clutching my chest. "Are you insane? You almost decapitated me!" Ignis stood across the room, his arm still extended. He hadn't thrown it. He hadn't even touched it. He had just waved his hand. "Magnets," I breathed, trying to rationalize the impossibility. "You have high-powered electromagnets in the walls. That is so extra." "You cannot leave," Ignis said, his voice dropping to a subsonic rumble that vibrated in my teeth. "The pearl must remain within my territory. If you leave my proximity, The separation anxiety of the artifact will cause your internal temperature to rise until you spontaneously combust. I stared at him. You're making that up. That sounds like sci-fi mumbo-jumbo to keep me here so you can call the cops. Try it, he challenged, crossing his massive arms. I narrowed my eyes. Watch me. I took one step toward the door. Instantly, a wave of heat exploded in my gut. It felt like I had swallowed a cup of boiling tea. I gasped, doubling over, clutching my stomach. Sweat popped out on my forehead instantly. Hot! Hot, hot, hot! I wheezed, falling to my knees. Ignis was there in a second. He didn't help me up. He just stood over me, blocking the exit. As soon as he was close, the burning in my stomach subsided to a dull, warm hum. The relief was instant. I panted, looking up at him from the floor. He looked smug. I hated him. The pearl recognizes its master, Ignis said, adjusting his cufflinks. It wants to be near its hoard, and since it is inside you, you must stay near the hoard. You have got to be kidding me, I groaned, wiping sweat from my brow. I'm allergic to billionaires. I break out in hives. And I am allergic to thieves, Ignis countered, offering me a hand. His palm was still smoking slightly. But it appears we are stuck with each other, Cleo Vance. Get up. We need to discuss the terms of your captivity. Chapter 3. The interrogation room was actually just his kitchen, but calling it a kitchen felt like an insult. It was a sterile laboratory of black marble and chrome appliances that looked like they required a PhD to operate. I sat on a bar stool that cost more than my entire life's earnings, swinging my legs nervously. Ignis stood on the other side of the island, staring at me. He hadn't blinked in 3 minutes. So, I broke the silence, tapping my fingernails on the counter. When you said spontaneously combust, you were speaking metaphorically, right? Like, I'll get a bad fever? I meant you will turn into a pile of ash, Ignis said flatly. The pearl is the crystallized soul of a very powerful ancestor. It contains the raw energy of a star. Your fragile human body is merely a container, a Tupperware. Did you just call me Tupperware? I asked, offended. If the Tupperware wanders too far from the source of the magic, me, the seal breaks, the energy releases, boom. He made a small explosion motion with his hand. It was the most expression he'd shown all night. Okay, Mr. Wizard, I rolled my eyes. Let's say I believe your magic pearl theory. Which I don't, by the way. I think you slipped me a radioactive isotope or something illegal. How long until I poop it out? Ignis winced. He clearly hated that word. The fusion process takes approximately 6 moon cycles to metabolize. 6 months? I choked on my own spit. I can't live here for 6 months. I have a life. I have a job. I have a scooter named Bumble parked in your alleyway getting a ticket right now. Your job is theft, Ignis pointed out. And your scooter is likely being urinated on by stray cats. Your life is irrelevant compared to the safety of the Hoard. My grandmother is not irrelevant, I snapped, the humor vanishing. If I don't pay Vinny the shark by Friday, he's going to evict her. So unless your magic pearl pays rent, I'm leaving. Combustion be damned. Ignis tilted his head. Money. You require currency. Yes, money. The green stuff normal people stress about. Before he could answer, a clicking sound echoed on the marble floor. Click, click, click. I looked down. The ugly, hairless dog creature from the living room waddled into the kitchen. Up close, it was even weirder. It had leathery gray scales instead of skin, and little bat wings folded against its back. "Aw," I said involuntarily. The stress was making me delirious. Look at him. He's so ugly he's actually cute. Like a pug that survived a nuclear fallout. Ignis stiffened. Do not touch it. That is a wyvern. It is a lethal biological weapon bred for guarding the treasury. It has a bite force of 2,000 psi. The wyvern looked up at me, tilted its oversized head, and let out a sound that was definitely a chirp. He's not a weapon, I cooed, ignoring the billionaire's warning. I reached down. Who's a good boy? You are. You're just a little grumpy meatball, aren't you? Stop! Ignis barked, reaching out to stop me. Too late. I scratched the creature right behind its bat ears. The wyvern's eyes rolled back in its head. Its legs started twitching. It let out a long, happy groan and flocked onto its side, exposing a soft, gray belly. Ignis froze, his hands suspended in midair. He looked horrified. It is submitting. That is impossible. He has eaten 3 intruders this year. Maybe they didn't know the spot, I said, grinning. My neighbor had a pit bull. Same energy. I'm going to call you Meatball. You will not name the lethal guardian Meatball, Ignis hissed. His name is Destroyer of Bones. Meatball, I corrected, scratching the creature's belly. Meatball kicked his leg happily. Ignis looked from me to the dog, rubbing his temples as if he had a migraine. You have contaminated the guardian. You have swallowed the pearl. You are a chaotic variable in a perfectly ordered system. I'm a delight, I corrected. Now, about that money. If I'm stuck here being your human Tupperware, I expect compensation. Hazard pay. Ignis sighed, a sound like a bellows expelling air. He pulled a sleek black phone from his pocket. Who is this? Vinny the shark? He's a loan shark, a bad one. Why? Ignis tapped the screen 3 times. Debt acquired. What? I have purchased his entire operation, Ignis said, putting the phone away. And the building your grandmother lives in, and the nursing home. It is all part of the Hoard now. My jaw dropped. You bought the mafia? I bought the debt, Ignis corrected. Now you owe me, and since you cannot pay, you will work off your debt. 6 months. You live here. You do not leave. You keep the pearl safe. He leaned over the counter, his amber eyes burning. Welcome to the team, Cleo. Chapter 4. I am not signing that, I said, staring at the digital tablet Ignis had shoved into my hands. It is a standard non-disclosure agreement, Ignis said. He was sitting in his armchair, sipping a glass of liquid that looked like crude oil. Combined with a live-in asset protection contract. It says here I forfeit my right to sue in the event of thermal incidents or dismemberment by household pets, I read aloud. I looked at Meatball, who was currently chewing on one of Ignis's Italian loafers. Does Meatball count as a household pet? He counts as a liability if you don't stop feeding him cheese, Ignis grumbled. Sign it, Cleo. You have no leverage. I own your debt. I own your grandmother's nursing home. I essentially own you. That word triggered something. Own. I had spent my whole life running from people who wanted to own me. Foster parents who wanted the check. Bosses who wanted the labor. Loan sharks who wanted the juice. I wasn't about to let some billionaire with a god complex and hot hands add me to his collection. No, I said quietly. Ignis paused, the glass halfway to his lips. Excuse me? I said no. I dropped the tablet on the table. Thanks for paying off Vinny. Send me the bill. I'll pay you back in installments.
But I'm not living in your creepy museum.
Ignis stood up slowly. We discussed this. If you leave, you burn. I'll take my chances, I bluffed. Maybe I just need some ice water. I spun on my heel and bolted. Cleo! He roared. I didn't wait. I sprinted for the private elevator. I smashed the button. Nothing. Of course. He had locked it down. Stairs! I yelled at myself. I kicked open the emergency exit door. 30 flights of stairs later, my legs were jelly, and my stomach was starting to bubble with that familiar, terrifying heat. It felt like I had swallowed a hot coal. Just keep moving, I told myself. Get to Bumble. I burst out into the alleyway behind Thorne Tower. The cool night air hit my face, but it didn't help the fire in my gut. I was sweating profusely. My vision swam. There it was, Bumble, my beat-up canary yellow Vespa. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking. The heat was getting worse. It felt like my blood was boiling. Come on, I wheezed, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered to life with a pathetic put-put-put sound. I revved it, kicked up the kickstand, and gunned the throttle. Freedom! I croaked, the bike lurching forward. I made it exactly 10 feet. Suddenly, the scooter stopped dead. The wheels were spinning, the engine was whining, but I wasn't moving. It felt like I had driven into a brick wall. I looked back. Ignis Thorne was standing there. He wasn't even out of breath. He had one hand clamped onto the back rack of my Vespa. He was holding the entire scooter and me in place with zero effort. Let go! I screamed, revving the engine harder. Blue smoke coughed out of the exhaust pipe. Ignis didn't budge. He looked bored. Are you finished?
No!
I shouted.
Let go, you freak!
Ignis sighed. He lifted his hand. He didn't just let go. He lifted the scooter, with me on it. He raised the entire Vespa into the air like it was a toy, holding it steady with one arm while I dangled 3 feet off the ground, clutching the handlebars. Put me down! I shrieked, kicking my legs. How are you doing this? Are you on steroids? Is this a CrossFit thing? It is a physics thing, Ignis said calmly. I am stronger than you, and you are overheating. He was right. Now that he was close again, touching the bike I was sitting on, the agony in my stomach vanished instantly, replaced by that soothing warmth. It was infuriating. My body literally relaxed against my will because he was near. This is cheating, I whimpered, letting go of the throttle. The engine died. Ignis lowered the bike slowly until the wheels touched the asphalt. He didn't let go of the rack. You tried to run, he said, his voice devoid of anger now, just cold logic. And you felt the burn. Do you believe me now? I slumped over the handlebars, defeated. I hate you. I hate your magic pearl. I hate your super strength. And I hate that you're right. Good, Ignis said. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. His eyes were glowing in the dark alley. No contact, just pure, unnatural amber light. Then let us go upstairs. Meatball misses you. He plucked the keys out of the ignition and pocketed them. And I am impounding this vehicle. It is an offense to engineering. Don't you dare insult Bumble, I muttered, climbing off the bike. But I followed him. Because honestly, I really didn't want to spontaneously combust in an alleyway. Chapter 5. Moving into the penthouse of the Dragon King involved fewer cardboard boxes and more humiliation. Since I couldn't leave Ignis's side without turning into a human candle, he insisted on accompanying me to my apartment to pack. He stood in my tiny, cramped studio apartment in the bad part of town, looking like a god who had taken a wrong turn into a dumpster. He touched nothing. He just stood in the center of the room, radiating judgment. "You live like this?" he asked, eyeing a pile of laundry on my chair. "It's called eclectic chaos," I snapped, stuffing socks into a duffel bag. "We can't all be billionaires with OCD." When we got back to the penthouse, the contrast was painful. His place was vast, cold, and empty. My stuff was colorful.
Where do I put this?
I asked, holding a neon green lava lamp.
The incinerator,
Ignis suggested. Funny. I slammed it down on a sleek glass end table. "I'm taking the guest room." "No," Ignis said. He was straightening a stack of books I had brushed past, aligning them perfectly with the edge of the table. "The guest wing is too far from the master suite. If I sleep, my dormant energy radius shrinks. You need to be within 20 feet. I froze. 20 feet? Dude, that's inside your room. "There is an antechamber," he said stiffly. "A sitting room connected to my quarters. You will sleep there." "Oh my God," I groaned. "I'm basically sleeping at the foot of your bed like Meatball." Ignis didn't deny it. He just pointed to the door. I dragged my bags into the antechamber. It was bigger than my entire apartment. It had a velvet chaise lounge and a fireplace, but it was just as cold and impersonal as the rest of the house. It needed pizzazz. I spent the next hour unpacking. Ignis retreated to his office, probably to go swim in a pool of gold coins or whatever billionaires did. When he came out an hour later, he stopped dead in the doorway. I had been busy. I had draped a rainbow-knitted blanket over his terrifying black leather couch. I had lined up my collection of bobbleheads on the mantel above the fireplace, right next to a 10th century broadsword. And, as the pièce de résistance, I had hung a wooden sign on the wall that I found in a dumpster divining session. Ignis stared at the sign. His left eye twitched. "What?" he said, his voice dangerously low. "Is that?" "It's art," I said, stepping back to admire my work. The sign was made of distressed wood and painted in cursive font. Live, laugh, love. I had hung it around the neck of a suit of armor that looked like it had seen actual crusades. "It says live, laugh, love," Ignis read, sounding out the words like they were a curse in a dead language. "On the armor of Sir Galahad the Bloodless." "Galahad looks depressed," I argued. "He needs positive affirmations." Ignis walked over to the armor. He reached out to remove the sign. "Don't!" I warned. "If you take it down, I'll tell everyone you wear silk pajamas." He didn't, but he looked the type. Ignis's hand hovered over the cheap wood. He looked at the sign. He looked at the rainbow blanket. He looked at the bobbleheads. Any normal person would have thrown me out. But Ignis hesitated. He stared at my messy, colorful junk invading his perfect, sterile space. And instead of anger, a strange look crossed his face. His pupils dilated. He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of my cheap vanilla shampoo and old books. His hoard instinct was kicking in, though I didn't know that at the time. To a dragon, once something is part of the hoard, it stays. My junk was now his junk. My chaos was his chaos. He slowly lowered his hand. "Fine," he gritted out. "The sign stays. But if you put a tutu on the armor, I will evict you to the balcony." "Deal," I grinned. Ignis turned to leave, but stopped. He looked back at the pile of pillows I had arranged on the floor. I preferred sitting on the floor. Without a word, he walked to a closet, pulled out a blanket made of what looked like genuine fur, probably mink or sable, and tossed it onto my pillow pile. "The floor is cold," he muttered. "Do not get sick. Damaged goods lose value." He slammed his bedroom door shut before I could say thank you. I touched the fur. It was incredibly soft and still warm from his hands. "Weirdo," I whispered, but I pulled the blanket around my shoulders and settled in. Down the hall, behind the heavy oak door, I heard a lock click. But for the first time since I swallowed the pearl, the heat in my stomach settled into a comfortable, steady purr. Chapter 6. I woke up screaming. It wasn't a nightmare. It was reality. My insides felt like they had been replaced with molten lead. I kicked off the fur blanket Ignis had given me, gasping for air. But the oxygen in the room felt too thin, too hot. "Water," I croaked, clawing at the collar of my oversized t-shirt. "I need ice." The door to the master suite flew open with a bang that shook the walls. Ignis Thorne stood there, silhouetted by the moonlight streaming from the floor-to-ceiling windows. He wasn't wearing his suit. He was wearing silk pajama pants. I knew it. And nothing else. His chest was broad, scarred, and, most concerningly, glowing with a faint, rhythmic pulse of amber light right over his heart. "The pearl," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "It is cycling." He crossed the room in 2 strides. As he got closer, the heat radiating off him hit me like a physical wall. "Don't!" I scrambled back against the headboard, sweat dripping down my nose. "You're too hot! Stay away!" Ignis froze. He looked at his own hands, which were smoking slightly. "You are right. My affinity is fire. If I touch you while you are in a thermal spike, I will boil your blood." "Great!" I wheezed, clutching my stomach. "So I just cook like a rotisserie chicken?" "No." Ignis scanned the room, his eyes landing on the glass doors leading to the atrium. "Get up." "I can't!" He cursed, a harsh, guttural sound that sounded like rocks grinding together. He grabbed the fur blanket, wrapped his hand in it to insulate his heat, and scooped me up. "Hold your breath," he commanded. "Why?" He marched out to the atrium, a massive indoor garden filled with exotic plants and a large, dark pool of water. I thought it was decorative. Ignis walked straight to the edge and dropped me in. Splash! The water was freezing. Absolutely teeth-shattering glacial cold. I went under, my mouth open in a scream that turned into a gargle. When I surfaced, I was gasping, thrashing, and shivering violently. But the burning in my stomach? Gone. Extinguished instantly. "Oh, God," I chattered, treading water. It's freezing. Are you trying to kill me with hypothermia instead?" "It is a koi pond fed by a sub-zero filtration system," Ignis said from the dry land. "I use it to cool my temper. Stay in until your core temperature stabilizes." "I'm going to drown!" I splashed helplessly. The silk pajamas I was wearing were heavy with water, dragging me down. Ignis sighed. He stepped into the water. He didn't flinch. He walked in until the water was waist-deep on him. Steam instantly began to rise off his skin, creating a thick white fog around us. He looked like a demon rising from a mist. He waded over to me and grabbed the back of my shirt, effortlessly holding me afloat. "Stop thrashing," he ordered. "I have you." I clung to his arm because I had no choice. His skin was hot, even underwater. It created a weird sensation. Freezing cold water swirling around us, but a pocket of intense heat right where he touched me. "You are literally a water heater," I shivered, my teeth clicking together. "How is this medically possible? Do you have a nuclear reactor in your chest?" "Something like that," Ignis murmured. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the steam rising from the water, his expression unreadable. We stayed like that for 10 minutes. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of the waterfall filter and my chattering teeth. I looked up at him. Water droplets were clinging to his bare chest, sizzling as they evaporated. For a second, I forgot he was my jailer. I forgot about the debt. I just saw a man who was standing in freezing water in the middle of the night so I wouldn't burn up. "Ignis?" I whispered. He looked down. His vertical pupils had rounded out slightly, looking almost human. "Is the pain gone?" "Yeah, I think so." "Good." He lifted me out of the water like I weighed nothing and set me on the stone edge of the pool. He didn't climb out immediately. He stayed in the cold, closing his eyes, letting the water hiss against his skin. "Go back to sleep, Cleo," he said quietly, without looking at me. "Do not wander. The pearl is unstable tonight." I wrapped my wet arms around myself and scurried back to my room, leaving a trail of wet footprints on his expensive marble floor. I didn't sleep. I lay awake, touching my stomach, wondering why the monster under the bed had felt safer than being alone. Chapter 7. By noon the next day, I had officially decided that being a billionaire's prisoner was boring. Ignis had left for business, probably terrorizing the stock market or eating a peasant, leaving me locked in the penthouse. I had watched 3 hours of reality TV, eaten an entire block of cheddar cheese from his fridge, and reorganized his bookshelf by color. Now I was staring at Meatball. The wyvern was sleeping on the rug, snoring. Small puffs of smoke came out of his nostrils with every exhale. "You need a makeover," I told him. "If we're going to be roommates, you can't look like a gargoyle that gave up on life." I pulled out my phone. Ignis had confiscated my Vespa keys, but he hadn't confiscated his credit card information, which was autosaved on the penthouse iPad. Rookie mistake, Dragon King. I ordered same-day delivery. 3 hours later, the elevator dinged. A terrified delivery guy shoved a box through the doors and sprinted away before the doors even closed. "It's here!" I squealed. Meatball woke up, ears perking. I ripped open the box. "Okay, buddy," I cooed, holding up my purchase. "This is going to hurt my dignity more than yours, but we have to assert dominance." It took 20 minutes, 3 slices of ham, and a lot of wrestling, but I finally got the harness on him. When Ignis walked through the front door at 6 p.m., he looked exhausted. He loosened his tie, dropped his briefcase, and froze. I was sitting on the couch reading a magazine. Meatball was sitting next to me. The terrifying, lethal guardian of the Hoard was wearing a neon pink mesh harness. Attached to the harness was a matching pink leash with rhinestones that spelled out princess. And because I was committed to the bit, I had tied a pink tulle tutu around his waist. Ignis stared. His amber eyes went wide. He blinked once, slowly. "What?" he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Have you done to the wyvern?" "His name is Meatball," I said without looking up from my magazine. "And he felt pretty. Don't body shame him." Ignis walked over to the beast. Meatball looked up at his master, gave a happy chirp, and wagged his tail. The tutu wrestled. "He is a biological weapon," Ignis whispered, looking horrified. He has crushed the skulls of armed mercenaries. He is the shadow of death.
He likes the mesh, I countered. It's breathable.
Ignis pinched the bridge of his nose. Cleo, you cannot dress a mythological beast in drag. It is an insult to his lineage. Mythological? I snorted. Please, he's a hairless dog with a genetic mutation. Stop trying to make him sound cool. Look at him! He loves it! I scratched Meatball behind the ears. His legs started thumping. Ignis looked at the pink leash. Then he looked at me. You used my black card. I needed essential supplies. You bought a tutu. Essential, I insisted. Also, I bought myself some noise-canceling headphones because you snore like a chainsaw. Ignis opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. He stared at Meatball again. The wyvern rolled onto his back, exposing his belly and the pink harness straps. A sound escaped Ignis's throat, a low, rumbling sound. It took me a second to realize what it was. He was laughing. It was a rusty, dry sound, like he hadn't used those muscles in centuries. He shook his head, looking at the ridiculous creature on his rug. Unbelievable, Ignis muttered. The Frost clan fears this beast. If Valerius could see him now. He'd probably ask where I got the leash, I said. It's designer. Ignis looked at me, the amusement fading into something more intense. He walked over, reached down, and tugged lightly on the pink leash. Meatball didn't bite him. He just licked Ignis's hand. You have a dangerous habit of taming things that should kill you, Cleo Vance, Ignis said softly. I have a charm, I shrugged, though my heart did a little flip at the look in his eyes. Clearly, he murmured. He dropped the leash. Take it off him before dinner. I cannot eat while looking at a ballerina lizard. No promises, I called after him as he walked to his office. I looked down at Meatball. Don't listen to him. You look fabulous. Chapter 8. Absolutely not, Ignis said. It was Saturday morning. I was wearing my favorite hoodie. It had a hole in the elbow, but it was vintage, and my lucky leggings, covered in cat hair. What? I looked down at myself. I'm comfortable. Comfort is key when you're a hostage. You look like a vagrant, Ignis stated, smoothing the lapels of his pristine navy suit. We are going out. You cannot be seen with me looking like that. Going out? I perked up. Like outside? Where the air is? To the Gilded Mile, Ignis said. You need a wardrobe that befits your station as my guest. Guest? You mean prisoner? Details. The Gilded Mile was a stretch of downtown where a single pair of socks cost more than my scooter. Ignis drove the Koenigsegg, which felt like riding in a spaceship, and we pulled up to a boutique called Eclat. The store was empty. I realized why when a man in a tuxedo locked the door behind us and flipped the sign to closed. You rented the store? I whispered. I prefer to shop without the noise of the public, Ignis said. A sales assistant with a nose job so sharp it could cut glass glided over. She looked at Ignis with pure lust. Then she looked at me with pure disgust. Mr. Thorne, she purred, and this. She gestured to my hoodie like it was radioactive waste. She requires everything, Ignis said, ignoring her flirting. Day wear, evening wear, silk, cashmere, nothing synthetic. Right away, sir. For the next hour, I was a doll. Ignis sat in a velvet armchair, rejecting outfits with a single word. No. Too flimsy. Yellow makes her look jaundiced. Finally, I stepped out in a deep emerald green dress that hugged every curve I didn't know I had. It was backless and made of material that felt like water. Ignis stopped scrolling on his phone. He looked up. His eyes darkened, the amber glow intensifying. He stood up slowly. "Keep that one," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "It's a bit tight." I tugged at the hem. "I feel like a sausage in a fancy casing." "It fits," Ignis said. Just then, a male tailor bustled out from the back. He had a tape measure around his neck. Let me just check the hemline, miss." He knelt down and placed his hand on my waist to adjust the fabric. A low, vibrating growl filled the room. It sounded like a lion revving a chainsaw. The tailor froze. I froze. Ignis was standing right behind the tailor. He hadn't moved fast. He had just appeared there, his hand clamped onto the tailor's shoulder. Smoke, actual gray smoke, started to curl up from the fabric of the tailor's shirt where Ignis was touching him. "Do not," Ignis whispered. "Touch her." The tailor turned pale. "Sir, I was just measuring." "Use your eyes," Ignis snarled. "If you put your hands on her again, you will lose them." "Ignis!" I hissed, grabbing his arm. "Down, boy! He's doing his job!" Ignis looked at me. His pupils were slits. He looked feral. The civilized billionaire mask had slipped, revealing the hoarding dragon beneath. He wasn't protecting me because he liked me. He was protecting me because I was his property. "He touched the Hoard," Ignis said to me, as if that explained everything. "I am not a lamp!" I slapped his arm. "Let him go! You're smoking up the place!" Ignis released the man. The tailor scrambled back, clutching his singed shoulder, terrified. "Wrap it up!" Ignis barked at the saleswoman, who was trembling behind the counter. "We are leaving!" He grabbed my hand, his palm hot and rough against my skin, and dragged me out of the store. "You have anger issues," I told him as he shoved me into the passenger seat of the hypercar. "I have boundaries," he corrected, slamming the door. But as he drove away, I noticed he kept glancing at me in the green dress, and his grip on the steering wheel was tight enough to bend the metal. Chapter 9. "I am not going in there," I said, planting my feet on the sidewalk. We were standing in front of the Ritz-Carlton. A red carpet was rolled out. Paparazzi were flashing bulbs like a strobe light rave. It was the annual Titans Gala, a party for the city's elite. "You have no choice," Ignis said, adjusting his tie. "You smell like me." "I took a shower," I protested. "I used the lavender soap." "Not to humans," Ignis leaned in, whispering in my ear. "To them, the others. You reek of my magical signature. If I leave you at home, a rival clan might smell you from the street and think I've left a piece of my soul unguarded. You must stay by my side so the scent blends." "So I'm an air freshener," I grumbled. "Great." "You are my fiancé," Ignis corrected. I choked. "You're what?" It is the only logical explanation for why a human carries such a potent trace of my energy. We are engaged. Smile. He grabbed my hand, interlacing our fingers. The heat from his skin seeped into mine, calming the nervous fluttering in my stomach. We walked the carpet. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted, "Mr. Thorne! Who is the mystery woman?" "Is it true you bought the entire West Side?" Ignis ignored them all. He guided me into the ballroom like a king entering his court. The room smelled weird. Underneath the expensive perfume and champagne, there was a scent of sulfur, wet dog, and ozone. "Why does it smell like a zoo in here?" I whispered. Because half the people here aren't human, Ignis muttered. Keep your head down. Do not make eye contact. We moved through the crowd. I grabbed a skewer of shrimp from a waiter and ate it aggressively. Nerves made me hungry. Ignis, darling! A woman glided toward us. She was tall, with hair like spun silver and eyes that were a chilling, icy blue. She wore a dress made of crystals that tinkled when she moved. Lady Pyra, Ignis greeted her with a nod. His grip on my hand tightened to the point of pain. I heard you acquired a new pet, the woman said, looking down her nose at me. Her gaze felt physically cold, like opening a freezer door. She seems a bit common. Is she a rescue? I stopped chewing my shrimp. Oh, hell no. Ignis stiffened. Cleo is my fiancé. Lady Pyra laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. Fiancé? Oh, Ignis. You always did have a penchant for collecting trinkets. But marrying a stray? That's desperate, even for a red dragon. Red dragon? I asked, feigning ignorance. Is that a sports team? Lady Pyra's eyes narrowed. She doesn't know? She knows I am powerful, Ignis said smoothly. That is all she needs to know. Lady Pyra leaned in, sniffing the air near my neck. She smells delicious, like cinnamon and raw power. Are you sure you're going to marry her, Ignis? Or are you just fattening her up? I felt a chill go down my spine. Ignis stepped between us, blocking her view of me. A low growl rumbled in his chest, audible only to us. Back off, Pyra, he warned. She is hoarded, touched by the king. You know the law. Lady Pyra smiled, showing teeth that looked slightly too sharp. For now. But winter is coming, Ignis, and we all know fire goes out in the cold. She swished away, leaving a trail of frost on the floor. Who was the Ice Queen? I whispered, rubbing my arms. An enemy, Ignis said grimly. Stay close. This party just became a battlefield. Chapter 10. I lasted 20 minutes before I needed a break. The fiancé act was exhausting. I had to smile, nod, and pretend I understood conversations about mergers, acquisitions, and bloodlines. Ignis was currently cornered by a group of old men in tuxedos, discussing something called territorial ley lines. I slicked away to the dessert table. Finally, I sighed, eyeing a tower of chocolate strawberries. Real food. You shouldn't eat those, a voice sneered behind me. Sugar makes the blood taste tart. I turned around. It was another woman, not Lady Pyra, but one of her minions. She had the same pale hair and cruel eyes. She was looking at my dress with open disdain. Excuse me? I asked, grabbing a strawberry anyway. You don't belong here, human, she hissed. You're a placeholder. Ignis will discard you the moment he gets what he wants. You're just temporary storage. She knew. She knew about the pearl. My sass, which had been suppressed by fear all night, suddenly flared up. I was tired, my feet hurt, and I was fused with a magical jawbreaker. I was done being bullied. You know, I said, taking a loud bite of the strawberry. You guys talk a lot of trash for people who look like they bathe in bleach. The woman gasped. How dare you? No, how dare you? I stepped closer. You think you can intimidate me because you have money and whatever weird cult thing you have going on? I stole a scooter from a nun once. I have survived loan sharks, eviction, and Ignis Thorne's cooking. You are nothing. I could snap you in half, she growled. Her eyes flashed blue. Try it, I challenged, bluffing with every ounce of confidence I had. Ignis is watching, and considering he almost burned down a boutique because a tailor touched my waist, imagine what he'll do to you. The woman glanced over my shoulder. Ignis was indeed watching. He wasn't with the old men anymore. He was standing 10 feet away, staring at us. He wasn't interfering. He was smiling. A dark, predatory smile. The woman went pale. She muttered something that sounded like a curse and hurried away. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Impressive, Ignis's voice rumbled in my ear. I jumped. Geez, put a bell on, would you? You defended yourself, Ignis said, looking at me with a strange expression. It wasn't annoyance. It was pride. Most humans would have fainted. I'm from the Bronx, I said, grabbing another strawberry. We don't faint. We get even. Ignis chuckled. He reached out and wiped a smudge of chocolate off my cheek with his thumb. His touch was hot, searingly intimate. The noise of the party faded away. You are, he started to say. Suddenly, the air in the room changed. The temperature plummeted. The condensation on the champagne glasses froze instantly. The chatter died down. I looked toward the entrance. A man was standing there. He was beautiful in a terrifying way. White blonde hair, skin like marble, wearing a suit of pure white. He looked like an angel of death. Who is that? I whispered, shivering. Ignis's hand clamped onto my shoulder. His body went rigid, turning into a statue of tension. His internal heat flared so hot I could feel it through his suit jacket. Valerius Frost, Ignis snarled softly. The Ice King. Valerius scanned the room. His eyes, pale, empty blue, locked onto Ignis. Then they slid to me. He didn't frown. He didn't scowl. He smiled. It was the scariest thing I had ever seen. Valerius raised a glass of champagne in our direction. A silent toast. I see you. Ignis pulled me behind his back, a low, rumbling growl vibrating in his chest that shook the floorboards beneath my feet. We are leaving, Ignis commanded. Now! Chapter 11. The ride back from the gala was silent. Ignis was still vibrating with that terrifying, predatory energy, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we got into the elevator, I didn't go to my room. I pulled out my phone. Who are you calling? Ignis asked, his voice tight. My grandmother, I said, hitting speed dial. You said you bought the nursing home. You said she was safe, but I haven't checked. Ignis didn't stop me. He just watched. The phone rang 3 times, then... Cleo? A familiar, creaky voice answered. Is that you, Pumpkin? Gam Gam! I slumped against the elevator wall, relief washing over me like a cold shower. I'm here. Are you okay? Did Vinny show up? Did anyone bother you? Bother me? Grandma laughed. Cleo, honey, it's wonderful. The new management took over yesterday. They upgraded me to the deluxe suite with the garden view. And they installed those heated toilet seats I like. And the food. We had lobster bisque for lunch. I looked at Ignis. He was staring at the floor numbers, pretending he wasn't listening. His jaw was set, but the vertical pupils were gone. New management? I asked Weeky. Yes, a lovely company. Thorne Holdings, I think? They sent a fruit basket the size of a Fiat. Did you do this, Cleo? Did you finally win the lottery? Something like that, I whispered, eyes stinging. I got a new job, Gam. A really good one. I might be busy for a while, But I promise everything is paid for. I'm so proud of you, baby. You sound happy. I am, I lied. I love you, Gam. Love you too, Pumpkin. I hung up as the elevator doors opened into the penthouse. Ignis walked out, loosening his tie. Satisfied? You upgraded her room, I said to his back. The standard rooms were drafty, he said dismissively. Drafts are bad for circulation. And the lobster bisque? I own a seafood distribution company. It was surplus. He was lying. He had done it on purpose. This terrifying, fire-breathing billionaire who threatened to incinerate tailors had made sure my grandmother had a heated toilet seat. Ignis, I said. He stopped, turning halfway. Thank you. He looked at me for a long moment, his expression softening just a fraction. She is part of the Hoard now, Cleo. We take care of our own. He went into his office and shut the door. I stood in the living room, feeling a weird warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the pearl. I needed to do something. I couldn't pay him back in money. I couldn't fight Ice Kings for him. But I could cook. 2 hours later, the kitchen looked like a war zone. It's rustic, I muttered, staring at the lasagna. It was black. Not just crispy, charcoal black. The edges were curled up like burnt paper. Smoke was billowing out of the oven. I had forgotten that Ignis's oven was a high-tech convection beast that heated up way faster than the stove in my apartment. Is the penthouse on fire? I spun around. Ignis was standing in the doorway. He had changed into a t-shirt and sweatpants, which was arguably more dangerous for my heart rate than the suit. He was sniffing the air. No, I said, trying to block his view of the oven. I was just making a blackened Cajun dish. It's very trendy. Ignis walked past me and looked at the tray of charred ruins. It is lasagna, he observed. Or it was in a previous life. I wanted to say thank you, I admitted, my shoulders slumping. For Gam Gam. But apparently I can't even boil water without supervision. I went to grab the tray to dump it in the trash. Stop, Ignis said. He reached out and took the tray from my hands. His fingers brushed mine, hot, calloused, gentle. He picked up a fork. You can't eat that, I cried. It's carcinogenic. Ignis took a bite of the black, crunchy mess. He chewed. He swallowed. He didn't wince. It is crunchy, he said. It's burnt, Ignis. I like burnt things, he said simply. He took another bite. I am a fire dragon, Cleo. Carbon is my favorite flavor. I stared at him. He was eating the worst meal I had ever cooked, standing in his $1 million kitchen just to make me feel better. You're weird, I whispered. And you, he said, pointing the fork at me, put too much oregano in the sauce. But he finished the whole piece. Chapter 12. The next few days settled into a strange rhythm. Ignis worked. I harassed Meatball with new accessories. He now had a rhinestone collar. But something was changing. It started with the silverware. I found myself staring at the gold-plated spoons during breakfast. I didn't just want to use them. I wanted to hold them. I wanted to put them in my pocket. Are you listening? Ignis asked over his coffee. I snapped my eyes away from his gold cufflinks. Yeah, stocks, bonds, boring. I was talking about the security system, Ignis said, eyeing me suspiciously. Your eyes are dilating. I need coffee, I lied. But the craving got worse. It was like an itch under my skin. Gold, shiny, mine. That evening, we were sitting on the couch. Ignis was reading a dossier on Valerius Frost. I was trying to read a book, but my eyes kept drifting to his wrist. He was wearing a Patek Philippe watch, rose gold, heavy, beautiful. I needed it. It wasn't a logical thought, it was a hunger. I scooted closer on the couch. "What are you doing?" Ignis asked, not looking up. "Just looking at the pictures," I murmured. I leaned my head on his shoulder. He stiffened, but he didn't push me away. He never pushed me away anymore. In fact, when I touched him, his body heat seemed to curl around me like a blanket. I walked my fingers down his arm, bicep, forearm, wrist. My fingers brushed the cold metal of the watch band. A jolt of pleasure went through me. Yes. "Cleo," Ignis warned, his voice low. "Shh," I whispered. "You have a bug on you." With a sleight of hand I hadn't used since I was 12, I unlatched the clasp. It was tricky, dragon reflexes versus master thief skills. Click. The watch slid into my palm. I pulled my hand back, clutching the prize to my chest. The relief was instant. The gold felt warm and right. Ignis closed the file folder slowly. He turned his head. "Give it back," he said. "Give what back?" I asked innocently, hiding my hand under the fur blanket. "My watch. The one you just stole off my wrist." "I didn't steal it," I said, my voice sounding a little breathless. "I just borrowed it. It looked heavy. I was helping you." Ignis moved. He was on top of me before I could blink, pinning me to the couch cushions. He wasn't crushing me. He was hovering, his forearms bracketing my head. "The pearl," he realized, staring into my eyes. "It is waking up the dragon greed. You are craving the hoard." "I just like shiny things," I argued, clutching the watch tighter. "It is a side effect," Ignis murmured. His face was inches from mine. I could smell him, wood smoke and expensive cologne. "The pearl wants to accumulate wealth. It is influencing your mind." "Well, it has good taste," I breathed. My heart was hammering against my ribs. "This watch is worth more than my kidney." Ignis looked at the watch in my hand, then back at my face. His pupils were vertical slits again. The air around us was getting hotter, charging with static. "You want the gold?" he whispered. "Yes," I admitted. "Keep it." My eyes widened. "What?" "Keep it," Ignis said, his voice rough. "Wear it, if it quiets the craving." He reached down and took my wrist, the one holding the watch. He guided my hand to his chest, right over his heart. "But know this, Cleo," he growled softly. "You can steal my watch. You can steal my money. But you do not need to steal what is already yours." He was looking at me with such intensity that I forgot about the gold. I forgot about the pearl. "What is already mine?" I whispered. Ignis leaned down. His lips brushed my ear. "Everything," he said. Then he pulled away, stood up, and walked out of the room, leaving me lying on the couch clutching a $50,000 watch and shaking like a leaf. Chapter 13. The craving for gold subsided, but the restlessness didn't. 2 days later, I convinced Ignis to let me go to the bodega on the corner, just for snacks. "It is within the perimeter," he conceded, checking his tablet. "But take the radio, and the panic button, and I'm buying Cheetos, not defusing a bomb," I said, grabbing my coat. "I'll be 5 minutes." Meatball whined at the door. "Fine," I sighed.
You can come, but you have to wear the disguise. I clipped on the pink harness and the leash. Meatball trotted out happily. The bodega was only a block away. I bought 3 bags of flamin' hot Cheetos and a diet soda. I felt normal for the first time in weeks. Just a girl, her ugly dog, and some snacks. I was walking back, humming to myself, when a black van screeched onto the sidewalk, blocking my path. The side door slid open. 3 men jumped out. They weren't human. I could tell by the way they moved, too fast, too jerky. Their eyes were pale blue. Frost Clan. "Grab the girl!" one of them shouted. "Cut the beast!" Panic spiked in my chest. I dropped the Cheetos. "Run! Meatball!" But I couldn't run. 2 of them grabbed my arms, dragging me toward the van. Their hands were freezing cold, burning my skin with ice. "Let go!" I screamed, kicking one in the shin. It felt like kicking a concrete pillar. "Get in the van," the leader snarled, pulling a knife. "We need the pearl." "Hey!" I yelled. "I have a dragon! He's going to kill you!" "The fire lizard isn't here," the thug laughed. He looked at Meatball, who was standing on the sidewalk, looking confused in his pink tutu. "And what is that? A rat in a dress?" He kicked Meatball. Big mistake. Time seemed to slow down. Meatball didn't yelp. He didn't run. He growled. It wasn't a dog growl. It was the sound of a tectonic plate shifting. The pink harness strained. The rhinestones sparkled. Meatball's jaw unhinged. His small, bat-like wings snapped open, expanding to 3 times their size. He didn't grow to full size. The street was too small. But he got mean. Chomp! Meatball lunged and clamped his jaws onto the thug's leg, the one who kicked him. The thug screamed as bone crunched. "Get it off! Get it off!" The other 2 thugs dropped me and drew weapons. "Kill the rat!" "Meatball, sick 'em!" I yelled, scrambling backward. Meatball released the leg and spun around, his tail whipping out like a mace. He slammed one thug into a brick wall. Then he unleashed a blast of fire, not a big dragon breath, but a concentrated jet of flame, right at the third guy's pants. "My ass! My ass is on fire!" It was chaotic. It was violent. And it was absolutely hilarious. A miniature wyvern wearing a pink tutu was systematically dismantling 3 trained mercenaries. Suddenly, the air pressure dropped. The pavement sizzled. Boom! Ignis landed. He hadn't driven. He had jumped from the balcony. He landed in a crouch between me and the van, cracking the sidewalk. He stood up. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was shirtless. His skin glowing with molten gold lines, smoke pouring off his shoulders. The thugs stopped screaming. They looked at Meatball, who was chewing on a tire. They looked at Ignis, who looked like the devil. "You touched her," Ignis said. It wasn't a question. We didn't know," the leader stammered, holding his broken leg. "Run," Ignis whispered. They didn't need to be told twice. They scrambled into the van, one of them with his pants still smoking, and peeled away, leaving a trail of rubber and shame. Ignis didn't chase them. He turned to me. "Are you hurt?" He grabbed my face, scanning me frantically. "Did they cut you? Did they use ice?" "I'm fine," I gasped, adrenaline crashing. Meatball saved me." We both looked down. Meatball was sitting amidst the spilled Cheetos, looking proud. His pink tutu was crooked. He had a piece of denim in his teeth. Ignis stared at the wyvern. Then he knelt down. "Good boy," Ignis said, his voice thick with emotion. He patted the scaly head. You are a true killer, even in pink. Meatball chirped and licked the blood off his snout. Chapter 14. Back in the penthouse, the adrenaline faded, replaced by the pain. The ice bruises on my arms, where the frost thugs had grabbed me, were turning a nasty shade of purple-black, and they burned. Sit, Ignis commanded, pointing to the bathroom counter. I hopped up. He pulled out a first aid kit that looked more like an alchemy set. There were jars of salves, bandages that glowed, and a bottle of amber liquid. Frost burns act like poison, Ignis explained, uncorking a jar that smelled like cinnamon and gasoline. I have to draw the cold out. He dipped his fingers in the salve. This will sting. He pressed his hot fingers against the bruise on my arm. Ow, mother of... I hissed, kicking my legs. Hold still, Ignis growled, but his touch was incredibly gentle. As he rubbed the salve in, I watched the steam rise from my skin. The cold, aching pain began to dissolve, replaced by the heat of his hands. They knew who I was, I said quietly. They knew about the pearl. Valerius has spies everywhere, Ignis said, his jaw tight. I underestimated his boldness. He attacked you within my perimeter. He called Meatball a rat, I added. He will pay for that insult, Ignis agreed darkly. He finished wrapping my arm and moved to the other one. He was standing between my legs as I sat on the counter. It was an intimate position, but neither of us moved away. Ignis, I said, looking at the top of his head. Why didn't you chase them? You could have caught the van. You're faster than a car. Ignis paused. He looked up, his amber eyes locking onto mine. And leave you? He asked, as if the idea was insane. If I chased them, you would have been alone on the street. Vulnerable. Cold. Meatball was there, I pointed out. Meatball is a good soldier, but he is not me. Ignis finished the bandage and rested his hands on my waist. His thumbs rubbed small circles against the fabric of my leggings. The pearl, it makes you a target. But it is not just the pearl anymore. Cleo. My breath hitched. What is it? My Hoard instinct, he confessed, his voice rough. It is evolving. Usually dragons hoard objects, static, unchanging. But you... He let out a frustrated sigh. You are loud. You are messy. You burn my dinner. You dress my weapons in tutus. I'm a handful, I smirked weakly. You are chaos, Ignis corrected. But when those men touched you, I did not feel the anger of losing a possession. I felt fear. He leaned his forehead against mine. His skin was so hot, but I didn't pull away. I leaned into it. I have never feared anything in 600 years, he whispered, until I saw you on that sidewalk. We stayed like that for a long time, breathing the same air. The line between captor and protector was blurring so fast I couldn't see it anymore. I'm safe, I whispered. You saved me. I will always save you, Ignis vowed. Chapter 15. The attack triggered something primal in Ignis. The next day, I came out of the bathroom to find my antechamber completely transformed. Gone was the cold, elegant furniture. Gone were the empty spaces. The room was filled, floor to ceiling, with soft things. Pillows, hundreds of them. Blankets made of velvet, fur, silk, and fleece. The floor was covered in a layer of plush duvets so thick it was like walking on a cloud. And in the center of the room, arranged in a perfect circle, was a massive mound of bedding. What? I blinked, clutching my toothbrush. What happened here? Did a mattress factory explode? Ignis was standing in the corner adjusting a pillow. He looked dazed. His eyes were slightly glazed over. It needed insulation, he mumbled. The walls were too thin. Drafts. Ignis, I stepped into the room, sinking up to my ankles in down feathers. You built a pillow fort. It is a nest, he corrected, snapping out of his trance slightly. He looked around, seeming to realize what he had done. A faint flush of gold appeared on his cheekbones. Dragons, we nest. When the Hoard is threatened. We build a secure location to keep the treasure safe and warm. So, I pointed to myself, I'm the treasure? Ignis didn't deny it. He walked over to the central mound, the nest, and poked it. It is structurally sound. You will sleep here. It is safer than the bed. I walked over to the nest. It looked incredibly comfortable. It was basically a giant fluffy bowl made of the most expensive fabrics on earth. You did this while I was brushing my teeth? I asked. I work fast. I climbed into the nest. It swallowed me up. It smelled like him, cedar and smoke. Okay, I admitted, snuggling into a cashmere throw. This is amazing. I never want to leave. Ignis watched me settle in. His shoulders relaxed. The tension that had been riding him since the attack finally dissipated. Good, he said. He turned to leave. Wait, I said. He stopped. It's really big, I said, patting the empty space beside me. And you look tired. Ignis went still. Cleo, I am a fire dragon. If I sleep in the nest with you, I might burn the blankets. I'm fused with the pearl, I reminded him. I like the heat, and I trust you. That was the truth. I trusted the monster who built me a pillow fort more than I had ever trusted anyone. Ignis hesitated. Then, slowly, he took off his shoes. He took off his watch, the one I had stolen and returned. He climbed into the nest. He stayed on his side, keeping a respectful distance, but the heat coming off him was divine. I scooted closer until my back was pressed against his chest. Ignis stiffened, then relaxed. His heavy arm draped over my waist, pulling me tight against him. Mine, he rumbled into my hair. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. Yours, I whispered back, closing my eyes. For the first time since I swallowed the pearl, I slept without dreaming of fire. Chapter 16. I was blissfully happy in the nest for exactly 3 days. It was a Saturday, and Ignis had agreed to let me visit my old apartment to pick up some sentimental items, mostly my collection of stolen hotel soaps. He insisted on driving, of course, and bringing Meatball, and parking the Koenigsegg directly on the sidewalk because parking meters are for peasants. Inside my studio, I was boxing up my soaps when a knock rattled the flimsy door. Cleo? Babe, I know you're in there. I saw the spaceship parked outside. My stomach dropped. I knew that voice. Who is that? Ignis asked. He was standing in the center of my tiny living room, holding a ceramic mug like it was an alien artifact. Nobody, I said quickly. Just a Jehovah's Witness. Very persistent. The door opened. Standing there was Brad, my ex-boyfriend. The one who borrowed $2,000 for a DJ career that never happened and then ghosted me. Cleo! Brad grinned, pushing past me. He was wearing a tank top that said, "Sun's out, guns out." I heard you hit the jackpot. Vinny told me some rich guy paid off your debt, so I figured,
Hey, maybe you could help a brother out. He stopped when he saw Ignis. Ignis was wearing a black turtleneck and slacks. He looked like a panther standing next to a golden retriever. He slowly set the ceramic mug down.
Who? Ignis asked, his voice dropping to that dangerous subsonic rumble. Is this? I'm Brad, Brad said, puffing out his chest. Cleo's man. Well, ex-man. But we have history, right, babe? He reached out to put his arm around my shoulder. Mistake. Before Brad's hand could touch my hoodie, Ignis moved. It wasn't a run. It was a blur. 1 second he was by the table. The next he was standing between me and Brad. He grabbed Brad by the front of his suns-out tank top and lifted him. Literally lifted him. Brad's feet dangled 6 inches off the floor. His eyes bulged. You touched her, Ignis growled. Ignis! I yelped, grabbing his bicep. It was hard as rock and radiating heat. Put him down! You can't just bench press my exes! He claimed a history, Ignis snarled, ignoring me. His amber eyes were glowing, the pupils sharpening into vertical slits. He claimed territory. I didn't claim territory, Brad squeaked, dangling helplessly. I just wanted a loan. You wanted her resources, Ignis interpreted. You are a scavenger, a parasite. Smoke began to curl off Ignis's shoulders. The air in the room grew heavy and hot, smelling of sulfur. Ignis, stop! I tried to pry his fingers loose. You're going to melt his shirt, and he's not worth the lawsuit. Ignis looked at me. He hurt you? In the past? He borrowed money and never paid it back, I admitted. He's annoying, not dangerous. Put him down. Ignis looked back at Brad. He didn't put him down. He brought Brad's face close to his own. Listen closely, scavenger, Ignis whispered. Cleo is not your girl. She is not a bank. She is hoarded. She belongs to the Dragon King. If you ever come within 5 miles of her again, I will not lift you up. I will burn you down. He released him. Brad dropped to the floor, stumbling back. He looked from Ignis's glowing eyes to the smoke rising from his own tank top, where Ignis's hand had left a scorched print. You guys are freaks! Brad yelled, scrambling for the door. Keep the money! I'm out! He slammed the door behind him. Silence filled the apartment. Ignis straightened his turtleneck. He looked calm, but his chest was heaving slightly. I did not like him, Ignis stated. You think? I sighed, rubbing my temples. Ignis, you can't just threaten to incinerate everyone I know! He touched you, Ignis said, turning to me. The anger in his eyes faded, replaced by that intense, terrifying possessiveness. He thought he still had a claim. I had to correct the record. He reached out and tucked a stray curl of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my cheek, hot and possessive. You are mine, Cleo, he murmured. Past, present, and future. No one else gets a turn. My heart did a traitorous little flip. You're really possessive, you know that? I am a dragon, he said simply. We do not share. Chapter 17. The jealousy incident should have been a red flag. Instead, it made me feel safer. Ignis was crazy, but he was my crazy. Or so I thought. 2 nights later, I woke up in the nest. The spot beside me was cold. Ignis was gone. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes. Ignis? No answer.
I saw a sliver of light coming from under the door to his private study, the one room I wasn't allowed in. I climbed out of the pillow fort, wrapping a silk sheet around me like a toga. I tiptoed to the door. I knew I shouldn't eavesdrop, but I was a thief. Sneaking was my love language. I pressed my ear to the heavy oak wood. Ignis was talking to someone. A video call, probably. "The fusion has stabilized," Ignis's voice said. It sounded cold, clinical. "The pearl has bonded with the host's nervous system, but full integration is months away." "And the extraction?" another voice asked. It sounded like an old man, raspy, ancient. "Can we remove it without damaging the energy?" My heart stopped. Extraction. "The host is fragile," Ignis replied. "If we extract it now, the vessel will be destroyed. The energy output would be catastrophic." Vessel. That's what he called me. Not Cleo, not treasure. Vessel. "We cannot wait forever, Ignis," the old voice argued. "The solstice is approaching. We need the pearl to power the barrier. The girl is expendable. Her life is a blink of an eye compared to the clan's survival." I held my breath. I waited for Ignis to roar, to say, "No, she is my mate. She is hoarded." "I know the stakes, Elder," Ignis said. His voice was flat. "I am preparing the procedure. I have been conditioning her, keeping her calm, fattening the energy reserves. When the time is right, I will do what is necessary for the Hoard." The world tilted on its axis, conditioning her, fattening her. The nest, the cooking, the shopping trip, the protection. It wasn't love. It wasn't even possessiveness. It was farming. He was keeping me happy so the pearl would ripen. He was the farmer, and I was the turkey before Thanksgiving. "Do it quickly," the elder said, "before you get attached." "I am a king," Ignis said. "I do not let emotions compromise the mission." I backed away from the door. My hands were shaking so hard the silk sheet rustled. He was going to kill me. All of it, the mine, the treasure, the jealousy, it was all a lie. He was just guarding his asset until harvest day. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and angry. I wiped them away furiously. No, I wasn't going to cry. I was Cleo Vance. I survived Vinny the Shark. I survived the Bronx. I wasn't going to let some fire-breathing lizard cut me open like a science experiment. I ran back to the nest, not to sleep. I grabbed my duffel bag from under the pillows. I stuffed my clothes in. I grabbed the first aid kit. I grabbed the Patek Philippe watch from the nightstand. Severance pay. Then I looked at Meatball. The wyvern was sleeping on a velvet cushion, twitching in his sleep. "I can't leave you," I whispered. "He'll probably turn you into a belt if you whine too much." I shook him awake. "Meatball, shh. We're going on a walk." Meatball blinked, letting out a sleepy chirp. I clamped my hand over his snout. "Quiet," I hissed. "We're escaping." I didn't take the elevator. Ignis would hear it. I went to the service hatch in the pantry, the one I had used to sneak in that first night. I looked back at the nest one last time. It looked warm. It looked safe. "Liar," I whispered to the empty room. Then I climbed into the vent, dragging a confused dragon dog behind me. Chapter 18. Running away with a miniature dragon is significantly harder than running away alone. First, there was the smell. Meatball smelled like sulfur and expensive dog shampoo. Second, there was the disguise.
I had to put my hoodie on him and pull the strings tight so his wings wouldn't pop out. He looked like a very lumpy toddler. We walked for 3 miles in the rain. I couldn't use my credit cards. I couldn't use my phone. Ignis could track it. I was off the grid. My stomach burned. The further I got from Thorne Tower, the hotter the pearl became. It wasn't the cozy warmth I felt in the nest. It was a fever, a sickness. Just keep moving, I muttered, shivering as the rain soaked my leggings. Find a motel. Get ice. We found a place called the Starlight Motor Inn. It had a flickering neon sign that said, "No AC" and "Free HBO." It was perfect. I paid cash for a room. The clerk, a guy with a glass eye, looked at Meatball, who was growling at a vending machine. "No pets," he grunted. "He's not a pet," I said, my teeth chattering from the fever. "He's my emotional support gargoyle." I slapped a $100 bill on the counter, stolen from Ignis's wallet weeks ago. The clerk took it. "Room 4B. We got into the room. It smelled like stale cigarettes and despair. I collapsed onto the bed. "Ice," I groaned. "Meatball, I need ice." Meatball, bless his heart, seemed to understand. He hopped onto the AC unit and pawed at it until it rattled to life. It blew lukewarm air, but it was better than nothing. I curled into a ball, clutching my stomach. The heat was unbearable. It felt like I had swallowed the sun. Without Ignis's proximity to regulate the magic, the pearl was cooking me alive. He knew this would happen, I thought bitterly. That's why he kept me close. Not for me, for the pearl. I lay there for hours, slipping in and out of delirium. I dreamed of fire. I dreamed of Ignis holding me in the koi pond. I dreamed of him cutting me open with a scalpel made of ice. Bang! I jolted awake. The door to the motel room didn't just open. It exploded. Splinters of wood flew everywhere. Standing in the doorway, framed by the pouring rain and the ruins of the door frame, was Ignis. He looked terrifying. His suit was soaked, clinging to his muscles. His hair was wild. His eyes were fully draconic, glowing slits of fury. And he was burning. Steam hissed off his skin where the raindrops hit him. He was so hot the door frame was starting to smoke. "Found you," he growled. I scrambled back against the headboard, grabbing a lamp as a weapon. "Stay away! I won't let you cut me open!" Ignis stepped into the room. The cheap carpet sizzled under his shoes. "Cut you open?" he repeated, his voice confused but still layered with rage. "What are you talking about?" "I heard you!" I yelled, tears mixing with the sweat on my face. "I heard you talking to the elder. About the extraction. About the vessel. You're just fattening me up for the slaughter." Ignis froze. The anger in his face faltered, replaced by shock. You listened at the door?" "Yes, and I heard enough. I'm not an incubator, Ignis. I'm a person." Ignis looked at me, shivering, feverish, holding a lamp like a baseball bat. He looked at Meatball, who was hiding under the bed, whimpering. "You foolish, reckless woman," Ignis whispered. He crossed the room. I swung the lamp. He caught it in midair. The bulb shattered. He didn't even flinch. He ripped the lamp out of my hand and tossed it aside. Then he grabbed me. "No!" I screamed, fighting him. "Let me go!" "Stop fighting!" he roared, pinning my arms to my sides. He pulled me against his chest. The relief was instantaneous. The moment my skin touched his, the burning agony in my stomach vanished. The pearl recognized its master. My fever broke. My knees buckled. Ignis held me up, his arms like steel bands around my waist. He buried his face in my wet hair. He was shaking. "You ran," he choked out. "You ran from the Hoard. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I felt my soul ripping in half." "You were going to kill me," I sobbed into his soaked shirt. "No," Ignis said fiercely. He pulled back, forcing me to look at him. I told the elder I was preparing for extraction to stall them, to buy us time. I told him what he needed to hear so he wouldn't send a hit squad to do it himself. I blinked, the tears blurring my vision. "What?" "I refused the order, Cleo," Ignis said. "I told him I would do it, but I never intended to. I was looking for another way, a way to save the pearl and you." You lied to the council?" "I would lie to God himself to keep you," Ignis vowed. "I am a dragon king. I do not destroy my treasure." Chapter 19. I stared at him. "You lied to save me?" "Yes." Ignis's grip on me tightened. "And then I wake up and you are gone. My nest is empty, my hoard is missing. I tracked the pearl signature through the rain. I tore through traffic. I almost incinerated a police car that tried to stop me." He looked around the dingy motel room with disgust. "And I find you here, in this hovel, dying of fever." "I thought I was saving myself," I whispered. Ignis let out a shuddering breath. He leaned his forehead against mine. "Cleo, listen to me. The pearl is dangerous. The elders want it back. Valerius wants it. But I swear on my blood, no one touches you. Not even me, unless you ask." The intensity in his voice broke the last of my defenses. I dropped the lamp cord I was still clutching. I wrapped my arms around his neck. "I'm sorry," I said. "I was scared." "You should be scared," Ignis growled, but he was nuzzling my neck now, inhaling my scent. "You scared me. Do not ever run again." "Make me stay," I challenged softly. Ignis went still. He pulled back just enough to look at my mouth. "Is that a request?" The air in the room changed. It wasn't just hot from the magic anymore. It was electric. We were soaked, exhausted, and standing in a motel room that smelled like old cheese, but all I could focus on was his mouth. "Yes," I breathed. Ignis didn't hesitate. Chapter 20. Ignis kissed me like he was breathing for the first time in centuries. It wasn't gentle. It was possessive. It was acclaiming. His mouth crushed down on mine, hot and demanding. I tasted rain, smoke, and cinnamon. I gasped, opening for him, and he deepened the kiss with a groan that vibrated through my entire body. His hands roamed over my back, pressing me closer until there was no air between us. My body reacted instantly. The pearl inside me flared, answering his call. A rush of golden heat swept through my veins, but this time it didn't hurt. It felt euphoric. "Cleo," he murmured against my lips. "Mine." "Yours," I panted. He lifted me up. I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively. He walked us backward until my back hit the wall. Hiss. Ignis?" I gasped as he kissed down my jawline. "The wall is smoking." He ignored me. His hands were in my hair, his lips trailing fire down my neck. "Let it burn." "No, literally." I looked over his shoulder. The cheap wallpaper was curling and turning black where his hands were pressed against it. The paint was bubbling. "Ignis! You're melting the room!" Ignis pulled back, dazed. He looked at the wall. There were 2 perfect, charred handprints on the plaster. "Control," he muttered, closing his eyes. "I must control the heat." "You're running a little hot, lizard boy," I teased, though my voice was shaky. He looked at me, his eyes molten gold. "You make me lose control. It is inconvenient." He set me down on the bed, which creaked ominously. He didn't climb on top of me. He stood there, breathing hard, running a hand through his wet hair. "We cannot stay here," he said, his voice rough. "If I lose control fully, I will burn this building down, and I suspect the fire department asks too many questions." "So we go back?" I asked. "To the tower?" "Yes." He held out his hand. "Back to the nest, where it is fireproof." I looked at his hand, the hand that had saved me, the hand that had charred a wall because he wanted me so much. I took it. "Okay," I said. "Let's go home." Ignis exhaled, a visible puff of steam. He pulled me up and kissed my forehead, a gentle, sweet contrast to the earlier inferno. "Meatball," he called out without looking. "Come out, we are leaving." Meatball crawled out from under the bed. He was still wearing my hoodie, which was now covered in dust bunnies. He looked traumatized. "Don't look at me like that," I told the wyvern. "Mom and Dad were just talking." Ignis scooped Meatball up under one arm and grabbed my hand with the other. "We are taking the Koenigsegg," Ignis said. "I left it in a loading zone. It has likely been towed." "You let them tow a $3 million car?" I asked as we walked out into the rain. "I was busy," Ignis said, looking at me sideways. "Priorities." As we walked to the car, which was indeed being loaded onto a tow truck, much to the driver's terror when Ignis appeared, I realized something. I wasn't just a thief anymore, and I wasn't just a vessel. I was the Hoard. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to run. Chapter 21. The drive back to Thorne Tower was quiet, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the heavy, static-charged silence of a storm waiting to break. Ignis drove the reclaimed Koenigsegg like he was trying to outrun physics. His hand rested on my thigh, his grip tight, sending waves of heat through my damp leggings. "We are going into lockdown," Ignis said, his eyes scanning the road for threats. "I am doubling the perimeter, no one in or out, not even the pizza delivery boy." "What about Grandma?" I asked, scrolling through my phone. "If Valerius knows about me, he knows about her." "She is guarded by 2 obsidian gargoyles disguised as garden gnomes," Ignis assured me. "If anyone steps on her lawn, they will be eaten." I relaxed slightly. "Okay, garden gnomes. Good." My phone buzzed. I looked down. It was a text from an unknown number. No words, just a picture. My blood ran cold. It was a photo of Meatball, but not the Meatball sitting in the back seat wearing my dirty hoodie. This was a photo of Meatball sleeping in his crate back at the penthouse. The caption read, "Cute dog. Shame if the tower fell." "Ignis," I choked out. "The penthouse. They're inside." Ignis slammed on the brakes, swerving the hypercar onto the shoulder. He snatched the phone from my hand. His pupils slit instantly. "Frost," he snarled. "He breached the wards." "How?" "He must have used a thermal dampener to bypass the sensors." Ignis threw the phone into the back seat. "We cannot go back there. It's a kill box. He is waiting for us." "But my stuff! Your Hoard!"
You are the Hoard, Ignis said, putting the car in gear. Everything else is replaceable. He spun the wheel, peeling out in a U-turn. We are going to a safe house, an underground bunker in the... Boom! The road ahead of us exploded. A massive wall of ice, sharp and jagged as broken glass, erupted from the asphalt, blocking the highway. Ignis swore, spinning the wheel to avoid a collision. The car skidded, tires screaming, and slammed into the guardrail. "Get out!" Ignis roared. "Move!" He kicked his door open, literally kicked it off its hinges, and dragged me out. Meatball scrambled after us, whining in his hoodie. We were on a deserted stretch of highway near the docks. Fog was rolling in, unnatural, thick, freezing fog. "Ignis!" I screamed as a figure stepped out of the mist. It wasn't Valerius. It was a woman. She looked exactly like me. Same messy bun, same hoodie. She was even holding a fake meatball. "Help me!" the doppelganger screamed, running toward us. "Ignis, help! It hurts!" Ignis froze. For a split second, his instinct warred with his logic. The decoy smelled like me, probably using a stolen item of mine. She sounded like me. "It's a trick!" I yelled, grabbing his arm. "I'm right here!" But the distraction was enough. From the fog behind us, 3 dark shapes lunged. They didn't attack Ignis. They threw a net, a glowing silver mesh woven from cryosteel, over me. "Cleo!" Ignis spun around, his hands lighting up with fire. He lunged for me, but the Cleo decoy tackled him. She wasn't human. As she grabbed him, her skin turned to solid ice, fusing to his burning body. She was a suicide bomber made of frost magic. "Let her go!" Ignis roared, turning into a supernova of heat. He blasted the ice woman apart, shattering her into steam. But the delay cost him 2 seconds. 2 seconds was all they needed. The net around me tightened. It wasn't just a net. It was a thermal dampener. The cryosteel mesh was painfully cold, sucking the heat right out of my bones and suppressing the pearl's reaction instantly. "Meatball, attack!" I screamed. Meatball lunged, snapping at the net, but one of the thugs kicked him hard in the ribs. Meatball yelped and rolled into the ditch. "Ignis!" I reached out my hand. Ignis was there. He was reaching for me. His fingertips brushed mine. Then, a wall of solid white ice slammed down between us, thick as a bank vault. I saw his face on the other side, contorted in a scream of pure rage, before the thugs dragged me backward into the waiting van. The last thing I saw was the ice wall glowing orange as Ignis tried to melt his way through, and Meatball limping after the van, barking in his dirty hoodie. Chapter 22. Cold. That was the only reality. I was no longer in the van. I was in a room made entirely of ice. The floor was ice. The walls were translucent blue blocks. Even the table I was strapped to felt like a block of frozen nitrogen. I shivered violently, my teeth clattering so hard I thought they might crack. Ignis, I stammered. The pain in my stomach was excruciating. Without Ignis nearby, the pearl was reacting to the extreme cold by overheating. It felt like I had a ball of magma in my gut, warring with the freezing air on my skin. I was burning up and freezing to death at the same time. "Fascinating," a smooth voice echoed. Valerius Frost walked into my field of vision. He was even more terrifying up close. His skin was flawless and pale, like marble. His eyes were devoid of pupils, just swirling pools of blue. He wasn't wearing a coat. The sub-zero temperature obviously didn't bother him. "The pearl is fighting the environment,"
Valerius noted, tapping a long, pale finger against his chin. It is keeping you alive. Any normal human would have been a popsicle by now. Let me go, I wheezed. Ignis will kill you. Valerius smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Ignis is currently busy melting down a highway. By the time he finds this location, the extraction will be complete. He picked up a scalpel. It wasn't metal. It was made of obsidian glass. You see, Cleo, he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather, the pearl doesn't belong to the Red Clan. It belongs to the dragon's sovereignty. Ignis is hoarding it selfishly. He claims it is to protect the balance, but we all know fire dragons are greedy. He saved me, I managed to say. He built a nest. Valerius paused. He looked genuinely disgusted. He nested? With a human? How pedestrian. The Red King has fallen lower than I thought. He leaned over me. The cold radiating off him made my vision blur. This will hurt, he said simply. We have to cut through the meridian lines to release the energy into a containment field I've prepared. You won't survive, of course, but your death will bring about a new ice age, a worthy sacrifice. He lowered the scalpel toward my stomach. I squeezed my eyes shut. I focused on the pearl. I focused on the heat. Ignis, please. Suddenly, a siren blared. Red lights flashed through the translucent ice walls. Valerius stopped, the blade an inch from my hoodie. He looked up, annoyed. Intruder alert, a mechanical voice announced. Sector 4, thermal breach detected. He found us quickly, Valerius sighed. He put the scalpel down. No matter. The fortress is impenetrable. I will go deal with the stray dog myself. He turned to a guard standing by the door, a hulking brute made of ice and armor. Watch her. If the temperature in the room rises above freezing, kill her. Valerius swept out of the room. I was alone with the guard, and the pearl inside me was pulsing, faster and hotter. It knew Ignis was close. It was calling to him. Come and get me, lizard boy, I thought, clutching the stolen Patek Philippe watch in my pocket, my only anchor to him. Come and burn this place down. Chapter 23, Ignis. Thorne did not go to the police. He did not go to the Dragon Council. He went to a basement in Queens that smelled like cat litter and ozone. You gotta be kidding me, said the man behind the desk. His name was Gizmo. He was 5'0", wore thick glasses, and was currently Cleo's favorite fence for stolen electronics. Ignis stood in the center of the cramped room. His expensive suit was shredded. His shirt was burned off, revealing the glowing golden scales on his chest. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, and he was holding a very angry, very dirty wyvern under one arm. I need the blueprints, Ignis said. His voice was a low growl that shook the stack of hard drives on the desk. For the Valcortec building. Gizmo adjusted his glasses. Valcortec? Buddy, that's a fortress. It's owned by some icy shell company. Nobody hacks them. Their firewall fries brains. Ignis slammed a fist onto the metal desk. The metal turned red hot and melted under his hand, leaving a gaping hole. Gizmo yelped and rolled his chair back. Okay. No need for the theatrics, Human Torch. They have Cleo, Ignis said. The pain in his voice was raw. They have my partner. Gizmo paused. He looked at the melted desk. He looked at the terrifying man with the glowing eyes. He looked at Meatball, who was wearing a ripped hoodie and chewing on a stray Ethernet cable. Cleo? Gizmo softened. The cat? She's in Valcortec? Yes. Gizmo sighed and spun around to his computer array. She owes me $50, you know. If she dies, I'm never getting it back. He started typing furiously. Okay, look. Valcortec is a front. It's built on top of an old cryo-storage facility. If she's there, she's in the sub-basement, the ice box. How do I get in? Ignis demanded. You don't. The elevators require a retinal scan and a breath temperature check. If you're above 98 degrees, the doors lock and the room fills with liquid nitrogen. I run hot, Ignis muttered. Liquid nitrogen is annoying. Annoying? Gizmo stared at him. Right, okay. Well, there's a ventilation shaft. It's the exhaust port for their cooling system. It pumps out air at minus 50 degrees. It leads straight to the core. I can enter there, Ignis said. You'll fit, Gizmo nodded. But what about the dog? You can't take a pug into a vent. Ignis looked down at Meatball. Meatball looked up, a piece of blue wire hanging from his mouth. He is not a dog, Ignis said. He is the vanguard. Ignis reached into his pocket, miraculously still intact, and pulled out a stack of cash, thick enough to choke a horse. He tossed it onto the ruined desk. For the desk, and the intel. He turned to leave. Hey! Gizmo called out. If you find her, tell her Gizmo says, duck. Ignis didn't ask why. He just nodded. I will burn it all down, Gizmo. You will see the smoke from here. Ignis walked out into the rain. He looked at the towering skyscraper in the distance, the Valcortec building. It stood like a shard of ice against the gray skyline. He felt the pearl. It was a faint thrumming in his blood, a distress signal screaming, cold, cold, cold. Hold on, treasure, he whispered, crouching down. Daddy's coming. He looked at Meatball. Are you ready, Vanguard? Meatball spit out the wire. His wings snapped open, ripping the hoodie further. He let out a screech that sounded like metal tearing. Good, Ignis said. He didn't take a taxi. He didn't take a car. Ignis leaped. He launched himself 10 stories into the air, clawing into the brickwork of the adjacent building, climbing toward the roof. Tonight, the masquerade ended. Tonight, the dragon came out to play. Chapter 24. The exhaust vent was a hurricane of freezing wind. Ignis crawled through the metal tunnel, his skin sizzling where it touched the frost-covered steel. The cold was biting, desperate to snuff out his flame. But his rage was a furnace that wouldn't die. They took her. They touched her. He reached the end of the shaft. A grate blocked the way. Beyond it, he could see the blue-lit corridors of the Ice Lair. Ignis didn't bother with screws. He placed his palm on the grate. It glowed orange, then white, then liquefied into molten slag. He dropped into the hallway. Alarms were already blaring. Valerius knew he was here. Target acquired! 3 guards turned the corner. They were clad in heavy white armor, wielding rifles that shot concentrated blasts of liquid helium. Pff, pff, pff. 3 beams of blue energy hit Ignis in the chest. Steam exploded, blinding them. Did we get him? One guard yelled. From the steam, a hand emerged. A hand covered in dark red scales and tipped with obsidian claws. It grabbed the guard's helmet and crushed it like a soda can. Ignis stepped out. But it wasn't the man anymore. Not entirely. His face was elongated. his jaw unhinging to reveal rows of serrated teeth. Horns curved back from his forehead. His skin was a shifting landscape of magma and scales.
"Where is she?"
The voice wasn't human. It was the sound of a volcano erupting. The remaining guards opened fire. The helium blasts hit Ignis's scales and hissed harmlessly away. He was too hot. He was burning too bright. Ignis opened his mouth and roared. A torrent of fire filled the corridor, incinerating the guards instantly. He didn't stop. He marched forward, leaving footprints of molten concrete in his wake. He reached the heavy blast doors labeled Sector 4, Extraction. They were reinforced steel, 2 feet thick. Ignis didn't have the code. He didn't need it. He drove his claws into the seam of the doors. His biceps bulged, the suit shredding completely, falling away to reveal a massive, scaled torso. With a roar of effort, he ripped the steel doors apart, peeling them back like tin foil. He stepped into the extraction chamber. It was a cavernous room, filled with machinery and ice pillars. In the center, strapped to a table, was Cleo. She looked small, pale. Her lips were blue. Ignis's heart stopped. "Cleo!" He rushed forward. Valerius's voice echoed. "One step closer and I drop the ceiling." Ignis froze. Valerius stood on a catwalk above the room. He held a detonator. The ceiling was lined with massive stalactites of razor-sharp ice, hanging directly over Cleo. "Look at you," Valerius sneered. "A beast. You shed your human skin so easily. And for what? A thief?" "Release her," Ignis bellowed, smoke pouring from his nostrils. "And I will grant you a quick death." "I think not," Valerius smiled. "You see, Ignis, you have a choice. You can attack me, or you can save her." Valerius pressed the button. The ice spikes above Cleo detached. Time seemed to stop. Ignis looked at the falling ice. He looked at Cleo. He was too far. He couldn't reach her in time. But he wasn't alone. "Meatball!" Ignis roared. From the ventilation shaft above, a small, pink-harnessed shape dropped like a stone. Chapter 25. Meatball had been waiting for the signal. He had crawled through the vents behind Ignis, dragging his belly, smelling the fear and the cold. He hated the cold, but he loved the girl. The girl gave him ham. The girl scratched the spot behind his ear. When the big fireman roared his name, Meatball didn't hesitate. He dropped from the ceiling vent, aiming not for the ground, but for the air above the girl. As he fell, the magic that Ignis had infused into his bloodline took over. The adrenaline spiked. Grow. Meatball's body convulsed. His bones snapped and lengthened. His leathery skin stretched. In midair, the bulldog-sized creature exploded outward. By the time he hit the space above the table, Meatball was no longer a pet. He was a wyvern matriarch size, 20 feet of muscle, claw, and scale. The pink harness snapped. The dirty hoodie shredded into confetti. Meatball spread his massive wings, now wide enough to cover a bus, over Cleo like an umbrella. Crash! The massive ice stalactites slammed into Meatball's back. They shattered against his scales. Meatball grunted, the impact driving him down, his claws digging into the ice floor to brace himself. He didn't buckle. He took the hit. He shielded his human. Underneath the canopy of leathery wings, Cleo opened her eyes. She saw the dark-scaled belly of the beast. She saw the shattered ice falling around them like snow. "Meatball?" she whispered. Meatball lowered his massive head.
He let out a low, rumbling chirp that vibrated in her chest. On the catwalk, Valerius stared, his mouth open. That is a Class 5 wyvern. How did you smuggle that in? He is the Hoard guardian, Ignis roared from the doorway. And you just hurt his dog. Ignis didn't wait. He launched himself into the air. He collided with the catwalk, tearing the metal structure from the wall. Valerius screamed as he fell, crashing onto the ice floor below. Ignis landed on top of him. You like the cold? Ignis snarled, his hand closing around Valerius's throat. Let's see how you handle the heat. Ignis's hand turned white-hot. Valerius shrieked as his ice armor melted, fusing into a useless puddle. I surrender! Valerius gagged. I yield! The council! The council is not here, Ignis whispered, leaning close. Only the dragon. He didn't kill him. Death was too easy. Ignis pressed his thumb into Valerius's chest, burning a permanent branding mark into the Ice Lord's skin. The mark of the Red Clan. Owned. You are defeated, Ignis declared. Leave this city. If I smell your frost again, I will turn your bones to ash. He threw Valerius aside like a rag doll. Ignis turned to the table. Meatball shifted his wing, revealing Cleo. She was shivering, but alive. Ignis rushed to her. He ripped the straps off the table. He pulled her into his arms, wrapping his massive, scaled body around her. Cleo, he choked out. I'm here. You're scaly, Cleo murmured, touching his chest. Her hand looked tiny against his dragon-formed torso. I shifted, Ignis said, panic rising. I look like a monster. Do not look. He tried to pull away, ashamed of his beastly form. Cleo tightened her grip on him. She pressed her freezing cheek against his burning scales. You're warm, she whispered. My warm monster. She looked over his shoulder at the massive, panting wyvern. Good boy, Meatball, she said weakly. Meatball, who was currently the size of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, wagged his tail. The wind from the wag knocked over a computer terminal. Ignis let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. He buried his face in her neck, letting his heat seep into her, chasing away the winter. Let's go home, he promised. I'm buying you so many blankets. Chapter 26. The adrenaline was fading, and reality was setting in. We were standing in the ruins of a secret cryolab. The ceiling was gone, smoke was rising, and I was currently hugging a 7-foot-tall, half-dragon man who was entirely naked. Ignis, I whispered into his scaled chest. We have a problem. Valerius is defeated, Ignis rumbled. His voice was still deep and distorted, vibrating through my ribs. The threat is neutralized. No, I mean, you're naked, and we are in Midtown Manhattan, and the police are definitely coming. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. Ignis pulled back slightly. The scales on his face were receding, melting back into smooth, dark skin, but his eyes were still vertical slits of molten gold. He looked down at himself. My suit, he observed, sounding genuinely tragic. It was bespoke. Your suit is confetti, I corrected. And unless you want to end up on the front page of the New York Times as the flashing dragon, we need to leave. Now. Ignis looked around. The Koenigsegg is gone. Yeah, you wrecked it, remember? Right. He looked at Meatball. Meatball was currently the size of a Greyhound bus. He was sitting on the crushed remains of the extraction machine, picking ice out of his teeth with a claw the size of a shovel. He looked very pleased with himself. He hasn't shrunk, I noted. The adrenaline sustains the mass, Ignis explained. He will not shrink until he feels safe and fed. Great, so we have a nude billionaire and a kaiju. I rubbed my temples. Gizmo is never going to let me live this down. Ignis knelt before me. Even kneeling, he was massive. He took my face in his hot hands. Cleo, do you trust me? I trusted you when you threw a car, I said. I trusted you when you melted a wall. What are you planning? We fly. Excuse me? Ignis turned to Meatball. He let out a sharp, commanding whistle. Meatball's head snapped up. He chirped, a sound like a foghorn, and lowered his massive wing to the ground, creating a ramp. Get on, Ignis said. You want me to ride the kaiju? I asked, looking up at the mountain of scales. He is a wyvern matriarch, Ignis corrected, helping me climb onto Meatball's broad, scaly back. He is a wyvern matriarch, Ignis corrected, helping me climb onto Meatball's broad, scaly back. And he is the only vehicle big enough to carry us. I settled between Meatball's shoulder blades. It was surprisingly warm. Ignis climbed up behind me. Hold on, Ignis warned, wrapping his arms around my waist. His skin was scorching hot against my freezing back. Meatball, Ignis commanded. Fly! Meatball pushed off. The force was incredible. We shot straight up through the hole in the roof, blasting into the rainy night sky. The city lights spread out below us like a sea of diamonds. The wind whipped my hair, but Ignis's heat formed a shield around me. This is insane! I yelled over the wind. We're flying on a giant dog over New York City! The fog will hide us, Ignis said right in my ear. And the radar will interpret us as a low-flying cargo plane. A cargo plane that barks? Ideally, he won't bark. We soared over the Hudson River, banking toward the penthouse. I leaned back against Ignis's chest. I could feel his heart beating, slow, powerful, and steady. For a moment, I forgot about the danger. I forgot about the pearl. I was flying. Ignis? Yes, treasure? If we get pulled over by the Air Force, I'm telling them you kidnapped me. Ignis laughed, a deep rumble that I felt more than heard. Deal. Chapter 27. Landing a 20-ton wyvern on a penthouse balcony requires precision. Meatball landed with a thud that cracked the expensive limestone tiles. He folded his massive wings, looking hopeful. Good landing, I told him, sliding off his back. My legs felt like jelly. Ignis hopped down. He was still naked. He walked casually past the floor-to-ceiling windows toward the bedroom. I am going to put on pants, he announced. And then I am going to feed the beast. 10 minutes later, Ignis emerged wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. He was carrying a frantic-looking cow carcass. Don't ask where he got it. I assumed he had a guy for that, too. He tossed it onto the balcony. Meatball devoured it in 2 bites, burped a cloud of smoke, and promptly shrank back down to the size of a bulldog. While Ignis was dealing with the cow, I had peeled off my frozen, ruined clothes and wrapped myself in one of his plush bathrobes, trying to stop my teeth from chattering. Meatball waddled inside, curled up on the expensive rug, and fell asleep instantly. Ignis stepped back in, sliding the glass door shut. Problem solved, he said, dusting off his hands. He turned to me. The humor vanished from his face. He crossed the room and pulled me into his arms,
burying his face in the curve of my neck. "You were cold," he whispered. "In the lair, you were blue." "I'm okay," I promised, though I was still shivering slightly. "The pearl kept me warm." "The pearl?" Ignis pulled back. He looked at my stomach. "We need to check the fusion. The Ice Lair." Valerius's cold magic warred with the pearl's heat for hours. That kind of elemental pressure cooker shouldn't have been possible. "Is it bad?" I asked. "It is unprecedented. The pearl had to burn through mass amounts of energy to keep you alive. It may have accelerated the cycle." He placed his hand over my belly. I expected the usual warmth. Instead, I felt a jolt. It wasn't pain. It was like sticking a fork in a socket, but pleasant. A rush of pure, golden energy surged from my stomach, up my spine, and out to my fingertips. My vision went white. Gold. Heat. Mine. I gasped, grabbing Ignis's wrist. "Cleo?" Ignis's voice sounded far away, but I wasn't looking at him. I was looking through the walls. I could see it. I could see the gold wiring in the walls. I could see the silver in the silverware drawer 3 rooms away. I could sense the platinum in the safe downstairs. Every precious metal in the building was singing to me, a chorus of pings and pulses in my brain. And Ignis. I looked at him. He wasn't just a man. He was a blazing inferno of golden light. His soul looked like liquid sun. "You're shiny," I slurred. "Cleo, your eyes," Ignis said, his voice urgent. He dragged me to a mirror. I looked. My green eyes were gone. In their place were pools of swirling, molten gold. And my pupils, they were vertical slits. "I have dragon eyes," I whispered, touching the glass. "Did I shift?" "No," Ignis said, staring at me in wonder. "The pearl, it didn't just fuse with you, it dissolved." "Dissolved?" "It has fully integrated into your bloodline," Ignis murmured. "You aren't just a vessel anymore, Cleo. You are dragon-touched. You have the senses of the Hoard." I blinked, and the vertical slits widened back to normal pupils, though the gold color remained. "So I can sense gold?" I asked. "Yes, and heat, and danger." I reached into the pocket of my damp leggings and pulled out the only thing I had managed to hold on to. I set the Patek Philippe watch on the marble counter. I didn't just see a watch. I felt its weight, its purity, its value. I'm the ultimate thief, I realized, a slow grin spreading across my face. I'm a metal detector with legs. Ignis groaned. "That is exactly what I was afraid of." "Admit it," I poked his chest. "You love it." "I love you," he corrected. "The fact that you are now a supernatural kleptomaniac is just a bonus." Chapter 28. The next morning was quiet. Ignis didn't go to work. He didn't check stocks. He didn't even yell at Meatball for chewing on his loafers. He stayed in the nest. Shifting into his full dragon form had taken a toll. He was exhausted. His skin was pale and the heat radiating off him was low, like dying embers. I sat cross-legged in the pile of pillows, applying burn salve to the few scratches on his back that hadn't healed yet. "Valerius?" I asked softly. "Gone," Ignis murmured into the pillow. I branded him. The mark of the Red Clan.
It means he is property. If he enters my territory again, I can legally execute him without council approval. He will run to the Arctic and stay there. And the council? They will be angry, Ignis said, opening one eye. It was gold, tired but clear. They wanted the pearl back, but they cannot take it now. It is part of your DNA. To extract it would mean killing you, and you won't let them do that. I would burn the world first. He rolled over and pulled me down so I was lying on his chest. His heartbeat was slow, lulling me. I have a confession, Ignis said. If it's about the other car I crashed, I already know. No. He traced the line of my jaw with his thumb. When I first caught you, I didn't keep you because of the pearl. I paused. You didn't? No. I could have put you in a stasis pod. It would have been safer. Ignis looked away, looking almost shy. I kept you in the penthouse because I was lonely, and you were the first thing in 600 years that didn't fear me. I feared you a little, I admitted, especially the hot hands. But you yelled at me, he smiled faintly. You insulted my dog. You hung a live, laugh, love sign on my armor. You made my house feel alive. I kissed his chest, right over his heart. Well, you're stuck with me now. Me, the ugly dog, and the grandma. Speaking of the grandmother, Ignis said, we should visit her. She has been asking why her granddaughter is dating a seafood magnate. We are not telling her you're a dragon, I warned. She has a pacemaker. Agreed. Ignis closed his eyes, pulling the fur blanket over us. We will just tell her I am eccentric and incredibly wealthy. She'll love that. We lay there in the silence of the nest, safe, warm, together. Ignis? Can we buy him another pink leash? The old one exploded. No. Please. He feels pretty in pink. Fine. But he is only allowed to wear it for special occasions. Chapter 29. 6 months later, the pearl, or rather the magic inside me, had settled. My eyes were still gold, which I explained away as colored contacts to the public, and I could still smell a diamond from 3 blocks away. Ignis took me to the vault. Not the bank vault, the family vault. It was deep underground, beneath the foundation of Thorne Tower. The door was solid gold and required a drop of dragon blood to open. Close your eyes, Ignis commanded. I did. If this is another car, I'm going to crash it. It is not a car. The heavy door creaked open. The smell of ancient dust and ozone hit me. Open. I opened my eyes. It was a cavern, and it was filled, floor to ceiling, with gold. Coins, chalices, armor, jewels. It was Smaug's hoard, but organized by a billionaire with OCD. Whoa, I breathed, my inner thief drooling. This is a lot. This is the accumulation of the Red Clan for 3,000 years, Ignis said. He sounded nervous. He was adjusting his tie. He led me to the center of the room. There was a pedestal. On it sat a single, simple object. It wasn't a ring. It was a key. An old iron skeleton key. What's this? I asked, picking it up. It is the key to the Hoard, Ignis said. He took my hand. Cleo,
Dragons do not do marriage in the human sense. We do not need a piece of paper. He looked into my eyes, his gaze intense and burning. We share the Hoard, he said. Giving this key to another, it is the highest act of submission a dragon can perform. It means everything I have is yours. My gold, my life, my soul. He knelt. Cleo Vance, will you accept the Hoard? Will you be my mate? I looked at the key. I looked at the mountain of gold. Then I looked at the man, the dragon, who had burned down a highway to save me. You know I'm going to spend it all on snacks and dog toys, right? I choked out, tears welling up. I expect nothing less. Then yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll be your mate. Ignis stood up and kissed me. The vault seemed to hum around us, the gold singing in harmony with the magic in my blood. Good, he said against my lips, because I already put the deed to the tower in your name. You did what? And I bought you a country. Ignis! It's a small country, an island, very private. I laughed, wrapping my arms around his neck. You are impossible. I am a dragon, he corrected, and you are my treasure. Chapter 30, Epilogue, 1 year later. 1 year later. Push! I am pushing! Stop yelling at me or I will melt this bed! Breathe, Cleo. Breathe through the smoke. The delivery room was private, very private. Ignis had rented the entire hospital wing and reinforced the walls with steel plates, just in case. One more, the doctor, a specialized shifter medic, urged. I screamed, gripping Ignis's hand so hard I felt his bones creak. A wave of heat exploded from my body, singeing the sheets, and then silence, broken by a tiny, smoky sneeze. The doctor paused. Well, it's a boy, mostly. I slumped back against the pillows, exhausted. Give him to me. Ignis took the bundle. He was crying. Actual, molten tears were running down his face. He brought the baby to me. He was beautiful. He had Ignis's dark skin and my nose, but on his tiny shoulders there was a dusting of soft, golden scales. And when he opened his eyes, they were bright, vertical amber slits. He's perfect, I whispered, touching his cheek. The baby leaned into my touch, purring. He is strong, Ignis murmured, stroking the baby's head with a single finger. He feels like a supernova. What do we name him? I asked. Something powerful, Ignis said. Atlas? Titan? Leo, I said. Leo Thorne. Leo, Ignis tested it. The lion, a worthy name. Suddenly the door creaked open. Meatball waddled in. He was wearing a shirt that said Big Brother. He trotted up to the bed, sniffed the air, and let out a happy chirp. He put his paws on the mattress and licked the baby's foot. Careful, Vanguard, Ignis warned gently. He is fragile. Leo sneezed again, and a tiny puff of smoke came out of his nose. Meatball barked in approval. I looked at my family. The billionaire dragon king, the hybrid baby, the ugly wyvern dog. I thought about my old life, the stealing, the debt, the fear. We did okay, I whispered to Ignis. He kissed my forehead, his lips warm and lingering. We did better than okay, he said. We built the greatest hoard in history. I closed my eyes, listening to the purr of my son and the heartbeat of my mate. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to steal a single thing. I had it all. The end.